right now, the way you do category design is you really need to partner with other people to do it. Like, like the most important thing is like if a company just tries to do category design on their own, it's not going to work as well. Like I'm very confident that that's a very true statement.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Category Champions. Today we have Mark Kilens on the show. It's very special when we have someone that has helped create one category in the B2B space, but Mark has helped and been part of 3 new category creation processes. He has been in HubSpot, where he helped build the HubSpot Academy. He then worked at Drift, where he was the VP of Marketing and the VP of Content and Community. And then he was the CMO at Airmeet. He's been part of creating these 3 new categories, and he's also doing it again for a 4th time with a people-first go-to-market at TACK, his new media and marketing firm. I'm very excited for today's episode. We cover a lot on how do you know you're building a new category, what's the process, what are the team that you need to build that, what are some of the signals that your category that you're creating is resonating, how to find the languaging of the new category. So today's a great episode. It's short, packed, to the point. Let's just dive right in. Awesome. So, Mark, I know that you've recently closed the chapter at Airmeet and you've moved on to TACK. But when you were at Airmeet, you were one of the main focus on creating this event-led growth category. What was the story or the strategic narrative built at Airmeet that you guys share with the world? Was there a specific framework that you guys used to tell that story?
Yeah, so category creation is a very important and interesting endeavor. And there's different types of categories. I think people get this confused. So there's thought leadership categories, which is like event-led growth. There's product categories. There's like even I would maybe say in between those two, there's like solution level categories. But at the end of the day, you're trying to evangelize a story that articulates macro and micro problems and things that are happening at the macro and micro level to people. And then at the micro level, it's the people that you have identified as your ideal customers that fit into your ICP, that are these personas. The macro level, it's undeniable truths. And you're doing this as part of your belief system. And the red thread that you should ideally establish as a brand to really unify what you're saying, why you're saying it, how you're going to help people with what you're saying, and ultimately like solve their problem, deliver the value. So it's a lot of things that kind of have to come together for a category to work, but then also to have staying power. So yeah, I'll leave it there for right now. You can take that in any way you want, but yeah.
I've seen you talk about the triangle of why, how, and what, right? And I love that framework. Can you share with our audience a bit how to unify and how to tie these 3 concepts together?
Yeah. So why is the why is what we were just talking about. It's these undeniable truths, these problems, these facts. Why do you need to do something? Why do you need to change? Why do you need to change now? Why is this going to help you? Like the why is ideally like very, fact-based, evidence-based. There's also an emotional component to the why. Like, why is this going to help you? Not just like the business you might work for if you're doing this from a B2B standpoint, or why is this going to help you? Right. So there's the selfish reason of the why too. But the quest to always make the why stronger and better kind of never ends, right? Because the world continues to change. And the greatest categories continue, and the greatest companies either continue to evolve their category or create new categories. An example of this has been recently Apple with spatial computing. So there's a very, if you don't have the why, like everything else kind of doesn't matter. You need the why, right? And you need to really hone in on that. The how is like, how do you actually go about solving or doing or executing to ultimately get to the why, which is more on the goal side. Like there's why you should care, why you should change, but then like, why is this going to help me, and how will it help me, and how does this work at the end of the day? So think of the how as almost like the jobs to be done of the product, of the service, but also of just the category. So if you think about like a category like inbound marketing, the jobs to be done are attract, engage, delight now. Inbound marketing is about attracting the right people, engaging the right people, delighting the right people, all in service of generating more revenue efficiently. Event-led growth was discover, engage, grow. Those are the jobs to be done. So you have to think about like, what are you trying, what do people need to do, and how do they need to do those things absent your product or service, right? Um, uh, keep it specific, yet design in a way where autonomy can be brought into the ideas. I can already see this with event-led growth. Other people are now talking about event-led growth and talking about it slightly differently, but overall, the ethos of what we're talking about when it comes to event-led growth is holding true across the board. So that's a validation of the category. The what is what do you need to use? What tools, technology do you need to use with the how to get to the why? And also the what is, what does this look like in practice? So examples. The what creates a lot of the context and the true the true understanding of the true things that you need to actually bring your now belief to life. So if you can get the why, the how, and the what all kind of figured out and aligned, then it's just a matter of seeing if other people resonate with it, believe in it, want to follow it. And if that starts to happen, then it's a matter of just saying it over and over and over again in different ways for many, many years, right? For to basically be the chief evangelist, if you will, of the whatever type of category you've created.
You've been in 3 different category creations, from inbound marketing, conversational marketing, event-led growth. How do you find the languaging to name and claim this new category, right? Because once you have the why, the how, and the what, you have the messaging, but the new category usually comes with a name. What's the process of finding the 2 magic or 3 magic words that are going to create this category? Or is that name not as important? It only works if you reinforce it later on.
No, name is very important. I mean, it's all about like association, right? Like the principle of like association, if you will. So like marketing is a very known category. Then with inbound marketing, just tacked inbound onto the front of it, conversational onto the front of it, right? So it's like you're just extrapolating out a very well-known thing, and the thing with event-led growth is, the led growth framing. So you're just taking like a pattern or a framing that already exists, and you're saying, wait a minute, our belief that there is this like idea of event-led growth, that you can use events and use the data from events to drive real revenue from a business point of view. Like you came with a product, right? Product-led growth is exactly that. Using a free product instead of events, and using the data that you are able to collect and understand to drive revenue, right? So it's very similar in that regard. So it's a pattern, right? And we're actually building another category right now as part of TACK, people-first go-to-market, people-first GTM. And that's, again, like more of a thought leadership, type category, solution type category, where we're trying to evangelize and teach people a new and different way of going to market. And for a lot of these things, right, it all starts with, what are these macro things that are happening, and how strong is the pull of those macro things? Like, and is it like 1, is it 2, is it 4, is it 5? And how can you design something that is a real problem facing people, and do it in a way that is going to get their attention. So right now, the way you do category design is you really need to partner with other people to do it. Like, like the most important thing is, like, if a company just tries to do category design on their own, it's not going to work as well. Like, I'm very, very confident that that's a very true statement. Like, to do category design, you need to find partners and people and other brands to bring it to life. So for event-led growth, we partnered with GTM Partners, an analyst consulting firm that was started about like 18 months ago, I think. And they're talking a lot about these different X-led growth motions. And I was able to show to them, like, actually, hey, folks, you're using event-led growth to bring your business to life. This needs to be one of the categories you talk about. And the rest is kind of history, right? So you have to find those partners. And some of the places you can start with when you come to partners is just your customers as well. Like, do your customers believe in this? So having your sales team test out the category messaging and positioning and hooks and other things as you develop it is a really smart thing to do as well.
I love this. I think this is great advice. I think it's probably the first time that has come on the podcast, of finding the ecosystem that's going to like raise the tide with you, and finding the partners that can help you do that. One of the questions that we usually get mixed answers in is how much a customer research plays in the role of defining and designing a new category and also naming it. Some people that I talk to have talked about customers that don't know what they want. So if you ask them, they're just going to say that they want a faster horse versus a car. And then for other people, they think that category creation comes from finding and talking to those customers and then finding what problems they're dealing with. What are your thoughts on what role does customer research play in building a new category?
Well, I mean, you have to talk to customers. You have to talk to people. I mean, that's the only way you will get to that why, how, and what, right? Like, it's like, I mean, you could start with nothing and try to ask them like questions, and then that leads you to something. But like over time, the more that you can, as you validate things. So as you validate things, the way you can frame it for people is going to be a helpful accelerant to them giving you more maybe pointed feedback. But you want to, out of the gate, just have general conversations about things that you feel are the why, the problems, the trends, the undeniable truth. Brian Halligan, he always talked about it from the point of view of you want to be a human anthropologist. Like, you want to study humans, and like you definitely want to study humans if you're trying to create a category. If you're trying to create like a really enduring brand, there's multiple dimensions from the story, the actual like who the brand is, the category, the thing the brand is evangelizing. Like it doesn't matter if you're a very small business or a big business. Every brand has the opportunity to do this. It's just a matter of like how intentional do you want to be with storytelling versus just marketing at people. Storytelling pulls people in. Marketing, at people is more of like a push thing. You're pushing your message on them versus trying to pull them in, and that's what category design is about as well. It's about pulling people in to a belief where they can see themselves in that story. And to do that, you need to include them in the process in a big way. And as you include people in the process, you're going to figure out, here are some people that might become really long-term partners for us as we bring this to life.
Could you expand on the why care framework that you've talked about? You've talked about why change, why now, why X. Can you talk to me about how this is a people-first framework and how to leverage it?
I mean, I learned that from someone in sales a while back. It's a sales framework almost, right? It's like you could use that framework on anyone, right? Like, on my young kids, you could say like, why change, why now, why, why whatever, right? Whatever the thing is. But it's all about context, right? People need to have context, and everyone's a little bit different in how they go about believing something and or learning something. But like what that framework tries to do is help educate someone about the need to change, the urgency of the change, and why this particular thing is a good thing to help them change. So it's like it's education, and it's also trying to help someone really get the full picture of the context of whatever you're talking about. Because like it's like if they believe that stuff, right? If they believe those kind of first two things, at least, why change, why now, then it's a matter of like, diving a bit more into their problems and really getting to know them and maybe their business. If you're doing this from a B2B standpoint, to then best position why us, if you will, and how to like truly lean into the differentiators of why us. Because like the why X at the end is what makes you different, unique, and special. And sometimes like, it's best told from the point of view of your customers, right? Like so I think it's a good high level framework that can maybe help people unpack the why a bit, but there's different levels of why change, why now, why X, right? Because it could be at the macro level, it could be at the micro level, it could be somewhere in between. So you just like don't assume that there's only one version of why change, why now, why X.
You also talked about how category design is an exercise in word of mouth acceleration. But to do that, we need to teach your customers how to teach. Could you expand on that last part, right? Because if we help our customers teach themselves, we're compounding our marketing and our story. But could you expand on this idea of word of mouth acceleration and teaching customers how to teach?
The first thing I guess you got to do is you got to deliver value to your customers. Like if the story, if you don't meet, ideally exceed people's expectations with the story you told, then it won't work. So like those first like 60 to 90 days of a customer signing up and working with your brand and product are like, of course, the most important. So if your category point of view isn't part of those first 60 to 90 days, it's going to be very hard to do what you just asked. So you need to get like the whole company needs to be aligned behind this as well. Like companies who don't have the entire company aligned behind the category, it's also not going to work out that well. And I've seen this be done in an excellent way, in a really good way, and in like a okay way, without naming any names. So like it's just like it's just super important that the CEO, the leader of the company, is the chief evangelist for the category. I mean, you have to be. And then it's a lot about just, one-to-one combat, each CSM, AM, AE, and over time as the company grows, you'll get more resources and things to programatize some of the things you just asked about in terms of how do you activate customers and all that other stuff. But use markers and signals of product data, engagement data from a customer standpoint to judge who are your raving customers that are most engaged and see which ones are going to be willing and excited to talk about the category from their point of view out in the market with you.
We always say that if the CEO is not leading it, it's just not going to work. From a CMO perspective, when you were doing that, how do you measure if a category is working, right? Like you're leading category. What are some of the KPIs? Maybe some qualitative data points as well that you're looking to see if the category is resonating with the market?
I mean, Google search, that's a big one. Call recordings of it being mentioned across sales and CS, mentions in social. A lot of it comes down to then when you do something specific from an offer standpoint, either event/webinar or content, how well does that piece of thing perform? If it's very related to the category, website traffic to specific category type pages, analyst pickups. There's lots of different ways you can do it. And some of it's very contextual to the business. But it's a long game. Like it's 2 years at a minimum to really get the thing rolling. At a bare minimum, it's 6 months. You probably won't see much in 6 months. You'll see some stuff, but it's not going to be like, oh my God, it's 12 months. All right, you're starting to feel some good momentum. 18 months, I can see stuff happening. There's a lot more people tagging on. A lot more people talking about. You want your competitors talking about it. You want people, to be in on it. So yeah, it's more for me the signal of success is momentum in the market. When you look at all these other types of signals you could look at, and is that momentum growing?
I love it. You mentioned the competitors talking about it, and I know we're at the top of the hour, so just to finish up quick, but how defensible is that category that you're creating? When competitors are joining in, and I think of that as a good sign, but how defensible is the category?
I guess what is your definition or idea of defensible?
To me, that it's a moat that will separate you from everybody else, that you're playing a completely different game versus your competitors, and that you don't have to compete on features, that you're competing on the story.
You could be the leader of the train, but I wouldn't say a category is going to create a lot of defensibility. It creates differentiation. Mm-hmm. And differentiation does help with defensibility, but you're going to need other things to create a lot of defensibility. So for example, I think inbound marketing without having, HubSpot Academy, bring it to life from an education standpoint, a certification standpoint, create a flywheel of learning and certifying people on it, which then was spawning off into other different programs, which created different nodes in the HubSpot network and community, which created connective tissue between what people understood and what they maybe didn't understand, and signals of trust in the market. That was all very deliberately done to create defensibility around inbound marketing.
Yeah.
If you don't do stuff like that, there's very little defensibility.
I agree. Yeah, if it's just a message or a story, it's hard. It's easier to be copied. Mark, I think we're running out of time. Thank you so much for being here. I think we had a great packed episode. I'd love to do part 2 in a few months. We'll put the links to TACK and to everything else on the copy below. But thank you so much for jumping in and spending a few minutes with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.